Hello. My name is Nadine Mehabir, and I'm a licensed immigration consultant. I've been working in this field for over 22 years. And today, there's so many topics that we need to discuss, but I'm going to start at the beginning. So, the first topic that I want to talk about is what are your options in terms of migrating to Canada? You can either go to Canada as a visitor. A visitor means, of course, you're just going as a tourist. You're not able to work as a visitor, but you can go and spend, whether it's 1 week, 2 week, 6 months, depending on your situation. There are some parents who go up to assist their children with grandchildren, especially during the summer months. So you do have different types of visitors. Next option is, of course, you can go up as a worker. Now, again, you do have different type of work permits. You have work permits that may be valid only for 1 or 2 months, depending on your employer and what type of position they're offering you. Now, for most work permits, the employer has to do what is called a labor market impact assessment application, an LMIA. And one of the first steps in doing an LMIA is that the employer needs to advertise for the position and show that they had difficulty finding Canadian workers. So that is why they're offering the job to a foreign worker. In most cases, the employer will also need to pay a processing fee of 1,000 Canadian, and that is whether or not the position is approved. So that is not a fee that the consultant is charging or the lawyer is charging. That is a government fee that the employer has to pay whether or not the position is approved. Once the employer has the approval in Canada, then yes, the worker can go ahead and apply for their work permit in their home country. That is an LMIA approved application for a work permit. You do have other types of work permit. For example, if you have a spouse in Canada who is there as a student, and again, depending on where they're studying, the spouse may qualify for what is called an open work permit. In that case, you would not have to go through that. You don't need to have an employer do an LMIA for you. Once you have an open work permit, you can work in pretty much most occupations. You will get a document from Immigration Canada that will state the stipulations and if there are any restrictions with your work permit. You also have work permits for certain positions, such as persons who are members of the clergy, religious positions. They do not normally need an LMIA approval. So again, if you want to come to Canada to work, you need to look at, okay, what is your current situation? Do you have an employer who is offering you a position? What is the position being offered to you? And does the employer need to do this LMIA process? So you have visitor status, work permit status. Next status is coming to Canada as a student. Now, Immigration Canada has a list of what is called designated learning institutions, the DLI list. And if you are planning to come to Canada as a student, you need to apply to one of the schools that is on this list. Another thing to bear in mind if you're coming to Canada as a student is, will I qualify for what is called a postgraduate work permit once you have completed your studies? Your studies need to be at least 8 months in duration if you are looking at qualifying for a postgrad work permit. So three things, well, a few things. The school needs to qualify. The course of study also needs to qualify for the postgrad, and the length of studies need to be at least 8 months in duration. Again, I'll break down these topics in more details in subsequent videos, but for today, I just want to sort of give you an idea as to what the different options are. Now, the final option is, of course, coming to Canada as a permanent resident. Whether you're looking at sponsoring yourself or applying for yourself as a permanent resident, or you do have a family member who can sponsor you. Depending again on the situation, parents can sponsor children who are 22 years of age or younger, or if the child is over 22 and has a mental or physical challenge, then yes, the parent can sponsor them. If you have a spouse in Canada, you do not have to be married to your partner. Whether you are married or in a common law relationship, and for Canada, a common law relationship is if you have been living with the person for at least 12 months. There's also what is called a conjugal relationship. If you're in an intimate relationship with your partner, and because of immigration purposes, so you're not able to live with the person because, of course, you're living in separate countries. You're in Canada, your partner's in another country, and they do not have a visa or any other status in Canada to live with you. So Immigration Canada allows you to sponsor your partner if they are living in another country, you're not married to them, you can do so as a conjugal partner. And this category was also implemented based on same-sex relationships as well. So again, bear in mind that yes, you do not have to be married to a person or you don't have to be married to your spouse or partner in order to sponsor them. Um, Again, I'll break down the topics in more details. We've got your self-sponsorship, sponsorship by a spouse or parent, and then now under self-sponsorship, you also have the provincial nominee programs. Depending on the province you're planning to live in, you would look at what are their criterions currently for permanent residency. So under Canadian immigration rules, there's so many, I'm going to say there are quite a few different categories, especially when it comes onto the provincial nominee programs. So it is important if you're doing the application on your own that you take a look at all of the details and make sure that, yes, you meet the requirements before you submit your information. You don't want to go through the process. In most cases, you may need to do an English test. This is for self-sponsorship. English test, education assessment, and then, of course, pay fees if you do not meet all the requirements. Okay, so buckle up. Let's get started. There's lots to talk about. And thank you for joining us today. Hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.